to a desperate situation that led them to take heroic and noble action that will be remembered forever. Today, we gather here to honor those 40 remarkable people and to remember our nation's debt to them. Welcome to Flight 93 National Memorial. My name is Stephen Clark, Superintendent of the National Parks of Western Pennsylvania, which includes this special place. The National Park Service has the important responsibility of caring for this 2,200-acre memorial dedicated to honoring 40 extraordinary people. When they boarded their flight in Newark, New Jersey, 21 years ago, those 40 individuals could not have imagined the challenge that they would soon face. In a moment, their routine trip to San Francisco became a harrowing test of their strength and courage. The passengers and crew members of Flight 93 met this crisis with valor and distinction. This morning, I would like to respectfully extend a warm welcome to those joining me here on the stage. First Lady, Dr. Jill Biden, Secretary of the Interior, Deb Haaland, Connie Hazzany, and Rabbi Jeffrey Myers. We are pleased by the presence of so many friends and family of the passengers and crew members, and by others who are joining us from around the world as a virtual audience. I sincerely thank each of you for joining us today as we remember the heroes of Flight 93. The Commonwealth of Pennsylvania has played a vital role in honoring the heroes of Flight 93 over the last 21 years. Governor Tom Ridge visited the site on September 11, 2001, and has been a steadfast friend to this memorial. Every governor since then, including Mark Schweiker, Edward G. Rendell, Tom Corbett, and Tom Wolf, have continued that support. Their sustained involvement over these many years has been vital to the creation of this memorial. On this day of observance, our Flight 93 National Memorial Partnership expresses our deepest gratitude and appreciation for the unwavering support to this memorial by communities like Shanksville, Stoystown, Freedens, Somerset, and many others over the last 21 years. Their commitment and dedication will never be forgotten. You know, folks, I get a little emotional talking about these communities because we interact with them virtually every day. And as a superintendent of this memorial, I can assure you, we could not do what we do each and every day without these communities. We are also honored today by the presence of many elected officials from all levels of government. Among them, Congressman John Joyce, State Senator Pat Stefano, Somerset County Commissioners Gerald Walker, Colleen Dawson, Pamela Tokar-Eckes, and also from the Shanksville Borough Council, Tessa Bell-Sterling. 21 years ago today, when the United States was attacked, heroes emerged in New York, at the Pentagon, and on Flight 93. The passengers and crew members of Flight 93 collectively stopped their hijacked plane from reaching its target. Their action saved untold numbers of lives and preserved the U.S. Capitol, the symbol and center of our democracy. They exemplify the best of humanity, having displayed strength and resilience in the face of tremendous adversity. We remember and we come together today to honor them. Let us also remember those who perished at the World Trade Center and at the Pentagon on that day, 21 years ago. At this time, I ask that you please stand as you are able for the Pledge of Allegiance led by Captain Christopher A. Brown, Commanding Officer, USS Somerset.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you, Captain Brown. Ladies and gentlemen, please be seated. At the end of today's observance, sailors from USS Somerset will open the ceremonial gate and salute family members as they enter the sacred ground. Named for this county, USS Somerset is one of the 3 ships that remember the tragic events of September 11th, along with USS Arlington and USS New York. We have and are honored to have a large contingency of officers and sailors from the United States Navy with us today. Thank you all so very, very much for your service and for being with us today to share in this important observance. This nation relies upon the men and women of all of our military for our protection. We owe them a debt which can never truly be repaid for their sacrifices they and their families have made in preserving our great nation. I would like to acknowledge the men and women now serving in our nation's military and all of the veterans who have defended this nation. At this moment, 21 years ago, 40 brave individuals, realizing their hijacked flight was part of a larger attack, they were preparing to act. By talking to people on the ground, those aboard Flight 93 learned that the World Trade Center and the Pentagon had been struck by other planes. Galvanized by that knowledge, the passengers and crew members joined together and decided to fight back. In a moment of terrible uncertainty, they were resolute. Their collective action that day still inspires Americans and people across the world. It is our duty to pause and remember those individuals whose lives were lost and who saved so many others when Flight 93 crashed into the hallowed ground next to us at 10:03 a.m. Helping to pay tribute to the 40 passengers and crew members is Maria Cordish, a Flight 93 volunteer ambassador. Mrs. Cordish will lead the reading of their names, joined by family members who will read the names of their loved ones. After each name is read, Dr. Patricia Hoffman and John McGuire, both of whom responded with Region 3's Disaster Mortuary Operational Response Team, known as DMORT, will ring the bells of remembrance in their memory. At the conclusion of the moment of remembrance, Rabbi Jeffrey Myers of the Tree of Life congregation in Pittsburgh, Pennsylvania, will offer an interfaith prayer of closure and peace.
Christian Adams. Lorraine G. Bay. Todd M. Beamer. Alan Anthony Bevan.
Gerald built Bingham.
Deora Frances Bodley. Sandy Law Bradshaw. Marion R. Britton. Thomas E. Burnett, Jr. William Joseph Cashman.
My sister Georgine Rose Corrigan Harrison.
Patricia Cushing. Joseph DeLuca.
Loving son, father, brother, uncle, and of my beloved cousin, Captain Jason M. Dahl.
Patrick Joseph Driscoll. Edward Porter Felt. Jane C. Folger. Pauline L. Frazier. Andrew Sonny Garcia. Jeremy Logan Blick. Kristen Osterholm, white, gold.
Lauren Catuzzi Grandcolas and unborn child.
Wanda Anita Green.
Donald Freeman Green. Linda Bronlin.
Richard Cadagno.
My brother, first officer, Leroy Homer.
My son, Toshiakuge.
Our beloved daughter, mother, cousin, sister, auntie, Cece Ross Lyles.
Hilda Marson. Waleska Martinez.
My sister Nicole Carol Miller.
My cousin, Louis Joseph Mackey II, Joey.
Donald Arthur Peterson. Jean Hoadley Peterson. Mark David Rothenberg. Christine Ann Snyder. John Talignani. Honor Elizabeth Wainio. Deborah Jacob Welsh.
First Lady Biden, Secretary Haaland, Superintendent Clark, honored guests, family, friends. My name is Jeffrey Myers, and I am the Rabbi of Tree of Life in Pittsburgh. It is my honor and privilege to offer a prayer for this occasion. We gather today to remember what was, what is, and what will never be. We recall the sacrifice of 40 air travelers who epitomized the home of the brave so that we can live in the land of the free. We recognize an entire generation has been born that did not experience 9/11. Ours is the gift of memory, and with memory comes responsibility, the determination to share our stories with this next generation so that through them, our loved ones continue to live. We mourn the generations that will never be because of the loss of these precious souls, but yet are grateful because their bravery enabled untold human beings to be born who could learn to appreciate and honor their valor. Eternal God, we pray to you for strength, perseverance, and compassion upon this commemoration. We invoke your name to guide us to become the nation that we are capable of, a beacon of light and hope to those oppressed and forsaken across the globe. Guide our leaders to promote justice justly, Strengthen the hands of those who serve in the military so that they may complete the missions in safety and security and return home safely. Enable us to raise a generation of children endowed with your spirit of goodness, who will love their neighbor as themselves, who will strive to eliminate all forms of racism, bigotry, and prejudice. May your wings of eternity embrace and comfort all those gathered here today to mourn and remember a spouse, a parent, a child, a sibling, a family member, or a friend. We read the following in the last 5 verses of Psalm 90. Relent, O God, how long must we suffer? Have compassion upon your servants. Grant us your love in the morning, that we may sing in gladness all our days. Match days of sorrow with days of joy, equal to the years we have suffered. Then your servants will see your power. Their children will know your glory. May the Lord our God show us compassion and establish the work of our hands. May the work of our hands be firmly established. I now offer the memorial prayer found in the Jewish liturgy. Exalted, compassionate God, grant infinite rest in your sheltering presence among the holy and the pure, to the souls of all our beloved who have gone to their eternal home. Merciful One, we ask that our loved ones find perfect peace in your tender embrace, their memory enduring as inspiration for commitment to their ideals and integrity in our lives. May their souls thus be bound up in the bond of life. May they rest in peace. And let us all say, Amen.
Thank you, Rabbi Myers. Beautiful, inspiring words. We are proud to be joined by members of 3 congregations which were attacked at the Tree of Life Synagogue on October 27, 2018. Representing the Tree of Life, Dor Hadash, and New Light congregations, they share our need to heal and to remember. Thank you all for being with us. Once again, our sincere appreciation to Maria Cordish, our family readers, and finally, the bell ringers, Tricia Kaufman and John McGuire. Local residents calling themselves ambassadors volunteered to watch over this site and welcome visitors long before this national memorial was established. This year, in January, we marked the 20th anniversary of that group. I would like to thank everyone who has served as a Flight 93 ambassador, including all who could not join us this morning, and all of those who have passed away. You are, truly are, in many ways, the heart and soul of this special place. Ladies and gentlemen, if you could please join me in recognizing this dedicated group of people. I ask all the ambassadors here with us this morning to please stand and to be recognized. Thank you. Our next speaker, Ginny Barnett, volunteered for several weeks with the Red Cross National Disaster Response Operations here in Shanksville and in New York after September 11. She has served as an ambassador since 2006, worked on the group's training and interpretive efforts, and now delivers weekly talks at our Memorial Plaza. please join me in welcoming Ambassador Jenny Barnett.
I am but one of 45 volunteer ambassadors that have the tremendous honor and privilege of sharing the story of the heroes of Flight 93 with visitors. Each of us has our own unique connection with that day and this memorial. For me, it's been all about God's healing me of all that I saw and did post 9/11 through this memorial process. I first saw the crater as a Red Cross volunteer on September 12th, 2001. I immediately began to break down and cry, thinking of the people aboard and what they must have experienced. I realized at that point I could not think about that and still function or get the work done. It was the same when I saw Ground Zero in New York City. So I made a very intentional decision not to think about anything on a personal level of those aboard. I kept all emotions at arm's length. Instead, I focused on the goodness that I witnessed in response to that day, goodness shown in action. Cards, letters, prayers, banners came from across the nation. Words of love and support. Donations of funds, materials, and services were enormous. One example, I met with a small printing company one morning to develop the memorial bulletins for the services. They then printed, cut, and folded 1,000 sets of bulletins and wallet cards for services held the next day. They repeated this for the second service, all at no charge. Volunteerism soared in response. In Red Cross alone, as of March 2002, 6,500 workers had served on the 9/11 responses, over 90% of which were volunteers. Over 70 federal, state, and local agencies were here. Side by side, they worked seamlessly and tirelessly, united under the common goal of investigation, recovery. The surrounding community opened their hearts and homes to the families and the response workers, continuing even to this day. Many of the families now consider this local community extended family. Each need during the response seemed to be met almost immediately through joint efforts of the response team and community at large. For instance, the one-way dirt road to the memorial site had become muddy and rutted from high traffic and rains. Tour buses bringing the families would not be able to navigate those roads. I left at the end of one day to find the next morning 12 inches thick asphalt covering all of those dirt roads. I can only imagine the teamwork and unity that such a feat required. But focusing on the goodness in response to 9/11 still left the personal tragedies of that day unaddressed in me. By 2006, I was still keeping that aspect of the 40 at arm's length. Mere mention of 9/11, verbally or in print, caused me to weep and shut down. My oral history for the archives here, followed by volunteering, was the first I started to revisit that day. God brought me to this memorial process to heal. Each task, project, committee involvement were orchestrated by God to take me step by step deeper into the story and the lives of the 40. As I witnessed this memorial actually become reality, I was gradually being able to face the reality of that day. And I discovered that here, the heroes of Flight 93 were the very first to demonstrate their goodness in action in the skies just above us. They epitomized and exemplified the goodness within us. Their courage, bravery, unity, selfless actions, all in the face of tremendous evil and adversity. That is the very definition of heroism. They provide for us inspiration, motivation, and hope for the future. You know, I started by blocking out anything personal about the 40. I just couldn't handle it at the time. I cannot tell you the depth of the honor it is to now know and share their story and who they were. This memorial offers the same healing and hope for all who come here and for our nation as a whole, so that we will never forget for generations to come. I have seen firsthand the evil that man can do, but I have also seen the good that man can do. While we need to understand and not underestimate such evil, it must be balanced with the good that is also within us. Evil may have dominated that day, but it cannot dominate us. With God's help, we can focus on and foster good, rather than let hate and anger consume us. I am forever changed and scarred by 9/11. But now, I have hope for the future. For me, it only happened through God's grace, the actions of these heroes, and this memorial. So I leave you with God's guidance from Romans 12:21, modeled so well for us by the heroes we honor and remember this day. Do not be overcome by evil, but overcome evil with good. Thank you.
Thank you, Jenny, for sharing your perspective and what you have gained through the years and your long commitment to both Flight 93 as well as to our nation and honoring the 40 passengers and crew members. Beautifully done. On October 13th, 2021, President Biden signed an act designating the September 11th National Trail Route. This route will form an unbroken trail linking the 3 attack sites of the September 11th, 2001 attacks, and it will pay tribute to the victims and to the heroes of September 11th. We are joined today by several members of the September 11th National Memorial Trail Alliance, which has led the effort to make this trail a reality. On behalf of the entire Flight 93 partnership, thank you for joining us today. A common thread of heroism running through each of the 3 attack sites on September 11th was the devotion to duty shown by law enforcement officers, firefighters, and first responders. They made the nation proud then, and they continue to make us proud now. Thank you so very much, as we are all truly grateful for your service. On September 11th, air traffic controllers, flight attendants, and pilots responded to the crisis with incredible courage and professionalism. Their dedicated efforts allowed thousands of planes to land safely on very short notice across the country and beyond. We are grateful to be joined by more than 50 flight attendants and pilots this morning. Thank you all for what you do each and every day to ensure public safety. Ladies and gentlemen, if you could please join me with a round of applause for all of those in the aviation, the pilots, and flight attendants this morning. As one generation recedes from view, the next one takes up its burdens and duties. Today, 21 years ago after September 11th, is indeed a transitional moment. A new generation, for whom the events of that day are not lived memory, is entering adulthood. Our next speaker, Connie Hasany, is a member of that next generation. For 21 years, family members have been guiding partners in our mission to honor the 40. The nation is grateful, truly grateful, for their efforts and those of many others here today in the roles in making this a world-class memorial. Today, Connie speaks to us with the voice of that new generation of family members, one that will carry on the legacy of their cherished loved ones. Connie is the great niece of Patricia Cushing, one of the passengers aboard Flight 93. Raised near Baltimore, she served in the reforestation event earlier this year and plans to be actively involved with the memorial in the future. This year's reforestation, sponsored by the Friends of Flight 93, saw the memorial complete a decade-long effort to plant 150,000 seedlings, each done by volunteer hands with the support of local businesses and governments at all levels. Ladies and gentlemen, please join me in welcoming Connie Hasany.
Good morning. Thank you all for being here. I am Connie Hasany, and my great-aunt Pat, Patricia Cushing, was one of the heroes of Flight 93. I'd like to start off by saying I'm extremely honored and humbled to be chosen to speak for the families at today's remembrance. On that fateful day, my aunt was traveling with her dear friend and sister-in-law, Jane Folger, to San Francisco for vacation. Although I do not remember much of my Aunt Pat, I have heard many stories about her. She frequently stayed at our house in Maryland to be closer to her mother in a Baltimore nursing home. I know that the last time I saw her was about a month before for my second birthday party. I will always cherish the few pictures that I have of her and me together. While you don't see me, her picture at the entrance to this memorial is my favorite picture with my aunt. In that picture, she was holding me shortly after I was born. When I was a preschooler, I would tell my parents to look above our house because I could see my late grandmother and my Aunt Pat watching over us. To say that my parents were shocked at what I was saying is an understatement. They couldn't see them, but day after day, my telling them to look changed their minds. Although I was only 2 years old at the time of the 9/11 attacks, I have a very special connection and I hold a responsibility that many others do not. As I have told my aunt's story over the years, I have heard many comments or remarks that made me realize how important my role is in retelling the events of that day. When I was little, I would share with my classmates that my Aunt Pat was on one of the 9/11 planes, and they would ask, "Is she okay?" As I got older, people would comment that they only knew about the 2 planes that hit the towers. And more recently, I have even heard someone say, "I didn't even realize that there were passengers on those planes." I say the same thing every time. There were 3 sites that day: the Twin Towers, the Pentagon, and Flight 93, my hero's flight. My generation does not remember the day of September 11, 2001. We were taught little pieces in school and heard little bits on the news once a year. Because of my connection to Flight 93, I am more aware of what happened that day and feel I have a huge responsibility being part of the younger generation that has a personal connection to not only the 9/11 attacks, but specifically to Flight 93. Those 40 were heroes and must never be forgotten. It was reinforced to me from a young age that I hold a great honor and an even bigger responsibility to ensure that this memorial is completed. I have done my part since I was very young, from donating Flight 93 flags to each school I attended to offering up my personal story of Flight 93 in class. United Flight 93 is a special story for many reasons. One key difference is that there was a delay in departure that morning of over 25 minutes. Also, there were only 4 hijackers, where the other 3 planes all had 5. The passengers and crew members were able to call home and learn that this was not a typical hijacking. It is truly amazing to me that these passengers and crew members who did not have any prior relationships with one another were able to create such a bond and come together to create a plan. Our understanding was that the plan was to regain control of the plane and land it safely. Although that did not happen, the fact that they were able to fight back and ensure that no one on the ground was impacted is a miracle. I am a recent college graduate who was fortunate enough to accept a job with Thompson Gas. As a member of our Community Involvement Committee, I suggested we participate in the tree planting at the memorial for our Earth Day event this year. The tree planting was completed this year with a grand total of 150,000 seedlings planted in an effort to complete the reforestation project. I am honored to say that I was able to plant the very last tree. As I have gotten older, I have tried to find more ways to stay connected and involved with the memorial, and I will continue to share the legacy of Flight 93. The families have been fortunate enough to be loved and supported by the locals of Somerset County. Despite the tragedy of this day, we could not have asked for a better final resting place for our loved ones. Flight 93 is a very unique story, and throughout the years, the community has truly embraced both the honor and the responsibility to remember our 40 heroes. So now, I challenge all of you to think about how you will honor the sacrifices of our heroes. Thank you.
Mom, Dad, you should be proud. Beautiful job, Connie. Thank you. There are 2 very special places near the entrance to Flight 93 that we have had a very strong connection to. Patriot Park honors the more than 7,000 American service members who have given their lives in the global war on terror. The second, the Remember Me Rose Garden, is a beautiful living tribute to the heroes of Flight 93. These neighbors join our efforts to honor the passengers and crew members of Flight 93. It is a privilege for all of us at the memorial to work with these 2 very, very special organizations. Every year, we are helped with this commemoration by terrific and incredible volunteers from the Pennsylvania Mountain Service Corps of AmeriCorps, a federal agency which helps make service to others a cornerstone of our national culture. In addition, AmeriCorps was here within days of the crash, providing water and supplies to the crews on site. I would like to personally thank, and on behalf of all of us, the AmeriCorps volunteers who are with us here today and all of those who have assisted in the past. Your service and commitment are greatly appreciated. And now, I would like to introduce a musical performance by the choir of the Church of the Resurrection from Burtonsville, Maryland. The choir will provide a rendition of David Cantor's September Morning, a memorial anthem after 9/11, 2001. So let us pause and listen together to this powerful work, written with devotion to the memory of all who died on that day.
Western Pennsylvania, an immense and beautiful bird flies. In her belly, a play of morality is beastily improvised. The play is finished, and from the land, a fine mist rises.
I
Thank you. Thank you very, very much for that moving performance. Nearly 20 years ago, on September 24th, 2002, President George W. Bush signed the act which created this national memorial. The National Park Service has been supported by several key partners in establishing and caring for this memorial. From the early days to the present, the Flight 93 Memorial Task Force, the families of Flight 93, Flight 93 Advisory Commission, the Friends of Flight 93, and the National Park Foundation have worked to make this memorial what it is today, 21 years after September 11th. To all the members of those organizations, past and present, we offer our sincere gratitude for all that you have done to stand with us. The National Park Service administers more than 400 sites across this great nation to preserve these special places for the enjoyment, education, and inspiration of current and future generations. We are honored to be joined this morning by the Director of the National Park Service, Charles F. Sams III, along with his wife Lori and their daughter Ruby. Thank you, Director. Thank you, Mrs. Sams. And thank you, little Ruby, for being with us today. I had the opportunity to spend some time with the Director and Ruby and Mrs. Sams, and boy, that Ruby is quite a special young lady. Ladies and gentlemen, I am pleased to welcome at this time the Secretary of the United States Department of the Interior, Deb Haaland. She leads a department which includes the National Park Service and employs over 70,000 people whose mission it is to protect and manage this country's natural and cultural heritage. Please join me in welcoming Secretary Deb Haaland.
Thank you so much for that kind introduction, Superintendent Clark. I'm very grateful and so honored to be here. And thank you to your amazing team, as always, for organizing such a fitting program to remember this somber day and honor the lives of American heroes. Director Sams, thank you so much for being here and for every single thing that you do. I'm so grateful to have you on the Department of Interior team. And good morning, everyone. It's an honor to join you all, to the families of the passengers and crew members who were on that fateful flight. Today and every day, we grieve with you and your loss and honor the ultimate sacrifice of your loved ones. And I'm honored to be here with all of you. On this 21st day of remembrance, we think of those we lost on September 11th at the Twin Towers, in the Pentagon, and right here in this field where Flight 93 went down. We think of the 40 people who did everything they could to save our country from an even larger tragedy. It's a sacrifice for this country that many may not be able to comprehend. It's the sacrifice for generations to come. It's a profound notion that passengers and crew members on that flight put their lives in danger to ensure that others could live. I among those. That those survivors would see their families that evening, even though the 40 would never be able to hug their children or to see their parents again. May their sacrifices and yours be forever remembered. In the community I come from, sacrifices for future generations are part of who we are and part of how the people thrive. Everything we do centers on a belief that there are people who have not yet been born, but who will benefit from our actions while we are on this earth. In times of tragedy and of immense grief, it brings us peace to know that the troubles we experience and the challenges we face add to our collective memory and our experiences as Americans. We carry the strength of those who came before us every single day, and we honor their sacrifice and what they do for others. Though there are young people alive today who may not have been on this earth to remember the tragedy our country experienced on September 11th, 2001, it's up to us to make sure that they will read these hero stories and be grateful for their incredible courage. It's something we can all be grateful for. The park rangers who serve this national memorial are helping to steward and protect those stories every single day. It's part of the story of America. Their service honors those who perished on this hallowed ground, and I am immensely grateful to them for ensuring that we will never, ever forget them. Today and every day, we remember. And now I have the distinct honor of introducing someone who lives her values and demonstrates her empathy and compassion for others every single day. And that is our First Lady of the United States. I'm honored to invite to the podium First Lady, Dr. Jill Biden.
Thank you, Secretary Holland. Deb, when you talk about your work, we can hear how much of your heart is in it. And Joe and I are so grateful for your leadership. Captain Brown, Commanding Officer of the USS Somerset, Director Sams, Superintendent Clark, Congressman Joyce, and all of the leaders here, thank you for welcoming us today. And I must say to Ginny and to Connie, your words were so beautiful, and I'm sure that they offered a lot of comfort to the families. Also with us is Keturah Johnson, International Vice President of the Association of Flight Attendants. I know that the last few years have been challenging for your members, facing unkind and even violent passengers. But to those flight attendants, I want you to know that Americans see your dedication, and we are grateful for it. Keturah, thank you for your leadership of the AFA. With the prayer and the choir, this has been such a beautiful and meaningful remembrance. Most of all, I want to thank the families of the crew and passengers of Flight 93 for sharing your love and memories of today. And I'm deeply honored to be here with you all. When we remember the events of this day 21 years ago, certain images are seared into our collective memory. Yet, even as we shared our grief, that moment affected us all in unique ways. Looking back, we remember the details like a slide under a microscope, the private memories that draw a deep, definite line between before and after. For me, as the shock settled into sorrow, after I talked with Joe and my children, I thought of my sister Bonnie, who is with me today. She was and continues to be a flight attendant with United Airlines. It's a job that she's loved for many years, and I knew that the weight of this tragedy would be heavier for her. When I got to her house, I realized that I was right. She hadn't just lost colleagues, she had lost friends. But I know that as we learned more about that dark day, she felt pride for what happened here as well. Pride that it was her fellow flight attendants and the passengers of United Flight 93 who fought back, who helped stop the plane from taking an untold number of lives in our nation's capital. You all have stories too, of that moment, of that day, of how its legacy has rippled through your lives. You have stories of loss, of last phone calls and waiting for news that you didn't want to receive, of hands that you will never hold again, and voices that you only long to hear. You have stories of pride, of the heroes who stood up to terror despite the danger, of the Shanksville Volunteer Fire Company who first answered a call they couldn't have prepared for and continued that work day in and day out, of a generation of women and men who put on our nation's uniform and became a part of something bigger than themselves and the families who served alongside them. You have stories of hope, of the humanity that shined through the inhumanity of that day, of the generosity of all the people here in Somerset County who donated what they could to state and federal law enforcement and welcome mourners with care and consideration to their hometown, of the love that lives beyond grief, that is undimmed by the passing of time. 9/11 touched us all. It changed us all. But it reminds us that with courage and kindness, we can be a light in that darkness. It showed us that we are all connected to one another. So as we stand on this sacred and scarred earth, a record of our collective grief and a monument to the memories that live on in us each day, this is the legacy we must carry forward. Hope that defies hate. Love that defies loss. And the ties that hold us together through it all. Thank you.
Thank you, Madam First Lady. Bonnie, again, thank you for being here. We must always remember what happened 21 years ago today, when an attack on our nation brought forth an inspiring show of courage from the 40 passengers and crew members aboard Flight 93. Confronted by that unprecedented situation, they drew upon reserves of inner strength, acted, and saved lives. As time goes by, this passage of time will indeed strengthen the importance of their story and this place in our nation's history. Let us never forget what they did here, and let us always remember the lives lost in New York, at the Pentagon, and again here on this field of honor. As I mentioned earlier, of the sacred sites cared for by the Park Service are some of the most historic places. This hallowed ground next to us, the resting place of the 40 heroes of Flight 93, is just such a place. It is one of the most important sites in our country, a place where brave men and women made history and shaped the future. When the events of September 11th have passed from living memory, this memorial, created through the tireless efforts of so many, will allow future generations to learn the inspiring story of Flight 93. I normally don't go off script, if you would, because every word from this podium is so important. But I would like to add to something that the Secretary mentioned. You know, typically, I don't mention the men and women of the National Park Service because they're doing their jobs. We have rangers as far away as Sleeping Bear Dunes, Cape Hatteras, Shenandoah. We have maintenance men and women coming to help us for this memorial service from Gettysburg, Delaware Water Gap, and too many parks to mention. Secretary, thank you for acknowledging these incredible men and women who make this event possible. In closing, alongside this field of honor, we remember the 40 heroes whose names are inscribed on this marble wall. To those around the world, to everyone here today, and to our cherished family members, thank you once again on behalf of our partnership for joining us all in the commemoration of this 21st observance.